Good morning to you, wherever you are in the world. In fact, it might not even be morning for you because you might be watching this in the UK or in Norway or Sweden, the US, where else? Other places. For some reason, people around the world like to sometimes jump on and listen to me talk. Maybe they're just amused by my funny Australian accent. I don't know. Anyway, you are on Ragnarok Survival. I am Gads, and this is the SitRep for today, which is the 26th of August, 2022. The situation report, where I kind of dig through news stories over the past day or two and scratch my head like the knuckle dragger that I am, trying to figure out what the fuck is going on in the world right now. I mean, we all know what's going on, but there's daily stuff that I'm just like, why are they doing that? Anyway, and now you're joining me for this little journey today. So welcome. I hope you're all happy, well fed, have rested, and aren't too cold or too hot, really, depending on where you are in the world. There's some people that are very, very hot right now. I'm not one of them. It's freezing here. All right, let's jump into it without any further ado. No, wait, there is some more ado that I will further go on with. I just wanted to say thank you very much for everyone who has been hitting that subscribe button and the like button on the YouTube or on the podcasts, wherever you're getting your podcasts, and for everyone who's been jumping onto the Instagram as well. I really appreciate it. Again, I'm not really here to gain numbers or anything. It's just this is information that I like to put out there. Certainly disaster emergency preparedness information is something that I like to talk about. I like to put it out there, and I like to encourage other people to do it as well. So I'm happy to do it. But I still appreciate it when people give me nice comments and thumbs ups and subscribes and likes and stuff like that. So yay, awesome. All right, let's jump into it. As always, we're going to start in our neck of the woods in Australasia in the Pacific. This got sent to me from a source. This was from a strategist organization called ASPI, strategist.org.au. And it's essentially just talking about some of the media releases that the US has put out and what they're actually kind of signaling with this information that they're putting out. It's more poking the, what do we call it, panda, dragon, whatever we're nicknaming China this week. The US basically came out and they were asked, hey, would some of your technologies, in particular the B-21, would that maybe go to Australia as well? And they're like, hey, if Australia needs it and they think they require that capability, like it's not beyond the realms of possibility. There wasn't any like, yes, we're definitely going to give this to Australia and we're going to boost up the Australian Defence Force. There wasn't any of that, but there doesn't need to be any of that right now. Them just not outwardly denying something like that is enough for China to get their nose out of joint. So it'll be interesting what China's reaction to this information is. In particular, what this actually means, because if it was to be given to Australia, or even US assets were to be positioned down in Australia, it's a pretty significant long-range strike capability that's coming kind of into China's neck of the woods now. So a little bit more to make them sweat, I think. Let's jump over to New Zealand now, my favorite cuzzy bros in all of the world. People don't understand probably what the relationship between Australia and New Zealand is fully to grasp it. I'll just sum it up like this. If you called a New Zealander who's traveling around the world, he said, oh, are you from Australia? They'll be massively offended by that. If you called an Australian a New Zealander, they'd be like, oh, no, I'm not a New Zealander, but thanks, but no. You can probably just extrapolate from that comment there what the relationship is. But I do like New Zealanders. I love all the folk over, or not all the folk over in NZ. There are, you got your fair share of dickheads over there as well. Probably slightly less proportion dickhead population than I think we have in Australia. But I in many ways see us as very, very similar place. Not quite the same country, but Pretty close. Anyway, protests were happening in New Zealand yesterday, so I just wanted to talk about that. I always like to talk about any sort of civil unrest protests and things like that that are going on, especially in our neck of the woods. This was about COVID. We had people in the streets with signs saying government must go. Basically, they're denouncing the COVID mandates that are still being enforced within New Zealand. In my opinion, rather draconian mandates that have been put out there, or arbitrary mandates that have been put out there quite often and haven't been wheeled back as more revelations have come out. That's probably the nicest way I can put that. You might fall on one side of this or the other side of it, but these sorts of mandates, I think everything's wrapping up now. Everything's coming to an end. Countries are opening back up. Last I checked, Peter Rouse just put a comment on YouTube saying no mandates in NZ that I know of. Last I checked, it was still difficult for someone like me who, for health choice reasons, might find it hard to travel around the world to certain places. It was still difficult for me to get into NZ again. But I do believe, I heard a rumor that I can now. So who knows what's going on there. Anyway, the point of it is not necessarily what it's all about, is the fact that there are protests. This, by all reports in the video that I watched, was an extremely peaceful protest. I saw no violent behavior in it at all. And I am a believer that people should be able to exercise their freedom of speech if they wish to. Whatever that is, I don't really care. I don't care if I'm totally disagreeing with what you're saying. I still believe in your ability to go out and say it. There wasn't any violence from this. All I'm pointing out here is that protests are something that I believe we're going to see increasing as time goes on. It's something to think about, especially if you live in and around cities. They are happening. They will happen more. Thankfully, that this one's not violent in any way, and hopefully they can stay that way. That we can get them. Peter Rouse says border is now fully open now as of a couple of weeks ago. Awesome. All right. Well, I'm going to get over there and shoot some of your deers. Maybe, or walk up some of your mountains. That's what I'm going to try and do, maybe in the not too distant future. Take the ride. Howdy from the US. How you doing? All right, so back over to Australia now, and this coming out of the ABC, the government-funded news source, which everyone trusts a lot in Australia for some weird reason. But anyway, they do. Usually relatively good reporting. But this is coming out of their rural section, ABC Rural, where they were reporting on John Deere tractor hack reveals food supply vulnerable to cyber attacks. So essentially what they were saying here is that John Deere, for those who don't know, is a agricultural machinery company, most notably tractors. Everyone knows John Deere's tractors, the green with the yellow symbol. You see these big green tractors or other agricultural machinery out there. That's John Deere. American company. At least it was started in America. I assume it's still American. I'm not really sure anymore. But it got revealed that that they had a vulnerability within some of their software, or some of their technology, I should say. And that got revealed by a hacker breaking into their technology and uploading the 1990s game Doom, which I loved. I grew up playing Doom. I love that game. So I guess farmers were turning on their tractor and Doom was coming up and they're like, what in tarnation? Fucking flaming crow. Flaming kids nowadays and the technology and computer games and stuffing up my machines. I don't know. Maybe how this actually came out was they're like, hey, why hasn't any of the wheat been pulled out of the ground yet? And they're like, oh, the farmers are too busy in their tractors. I can only hope that was it. But obviously, this shows that there's a pretty big hole in the systems, and I haven't actually warned about this or talked about this in a little while. I used to be quite heavy on talking about cyber attacks and things like that, but I still believe that cyber attacks are a huge thing, that we are way, way, way too reliant on the internet as a whole, but on these sort of technical systems that can be hacked quite easily, can be disrupted quite easily. And this is our food system. This is the Australian food system. And this could happen anywhere. And I think it's just lucky that the people that did it, I think, were just trying to get a laugh by loading up Doom, loading up a vintage video game up on these systems. But they really could have done some damage here, some serious irreparable damage to our food system. Already, there probably will be some damage, as in, some farming equipment wouldn't have been able to be used at the right times. But yeah, that's something to look out for. And it's something I always warn about. Like, if you are 100% reliant on the internet for parts of your life, look at that. I'm not saying be a Luddite. I'm not saying, build a cabin in the woods and go and live there, although I'm sure we'd all love to. There are some really good benefits. Right now, I'm talking to you through this medium that I wouldn't be able to otherwise. It might just be some random words on some random magazine that some random dude has written in an editorial somewhere. That's probably the most I could have hoped for 40, 50 years ago. But now I can reach into your life, into your hand right now, or wherever you're watching this or listening to this from, and you can access all sorts of information right now. So there are some really great things about what we have in our systems today, but we just have to be careful, and we have to be non-reliant on them. That's the key point. I'm always talking about self-reliant human beings. This is part of it. Being reliant on the internet for anything is not being self-reliant. It's quite the opposite. Peter Rouse down in Queenstown, South Island is definitely my favoured part of the NZ Islands. I like the North Island too, but definitely that South Island, definitely a fan. So if I get the chance, I will come down and I'll make contact with you. We'll go hang. All right, let's punch up into Southeast Asia now. Thailand has suspended its prime minister. So the Constitutional Court has come in and said we're actually suspending the PM. That has thrown, obviously, their politics into absolute turmoil. For those who don't know, Thailand isn't exactly known for its stability within its political systems, and it isn't exactly known for its people being quiet and subdued. They do riot, they do get up in arms. So this PM here, who has been PM, well, this is what they're arguing. Constitutionally, you can only be PM for 8 years. And so the opposition, I think, came in and said, well, he's been PM for 8 years. However, there was a coup, and he came in as a military general and took over control of the country. And they're saying that should count towards his time as well as PM. So, it almost looks from the outside that they're like, oh, look, he shouldn't be here. And they're just kind of throwing dirt around. And then the Constitutional Court's got a hold of it and gone like, yeah, maybe you're right, actually. All right, suspended. And everyone was like, whoa, 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 we're not ready for this. Their vice PM, the second in charge, has stepped up into the hole, but it's obviously thrown a lot of turmoil into the political system in Thailand. Watch that space. Possibly we could see some sort of backlash and some sort of rioting or protesting come out of that as we get pro and against supporters rise up at this point. But very, very interesting situation that's developing there in Thailand right now. China, we'll jump up to East Asia now. So China, the Yangtze River is running dry, and it's actually revealing these old Buddhist statues that were carved in there. Similar to what's been happening in Europe, where their river levels are so low that they're actually discovering all these carvings and warnings and things like that were written in the rocks. But this kind of shows us that, like, worldwide right now, especially across the northern hemisphere, where we're experiencing severe drought. Everyone is, and it's going to have huge effects. In fact, some of the numbers coming out of China right now. 2.2 million hectares of scorched crops. I mean, I always find China and its scale that it works on hard to fathom at the best of times. But when we're seeing destruction like this of 2.2 million hectares of food being destroyed, it's mind-boggling. So when you've got 1.5 billion people to feed, that's not a good situation to be in. All right, let's talk about Japan now. Japan is actually gearing up their nuclear power again. So they're planning on not just a bit of a like, oh, let's increase the amount of nuclear power we're using in the plants at the moment. They're looking at restarting 7 reactors and building new reactors. I haven't seen any numbers on how many reactors they're looking at building, but they're going fully down the nuclear path now. They've made the decision. They're like, no, look, they're in a lot of fear about rolling blackouts, and they've gone, no, we're doubling down on nuclear now. They were like the rest of the world, were teetering back from it. They're going, no, it's not working out. Come on, let's pull back, close down these plants, ramp it down. We'll go to something else. Now they've just done a 180 and they are running 100% into nuclear power right now. Oppose that with Germany, who is sticking by it. They're going, no nuclear power, even though there are horrific warnings coming out at the moment of what's going to happen with them come winter. They don't care. They're like, no, we're not. We've made the decision. We are shutting down. I think they've got 3 plants left, and they've made the decision to shut them down in the not too distant future. All right, let's shift over. This is kind of East Asia, but also to do with the subcontinent here. Apple, everyone's favorite technological empire, is shifting its manufacturing. It's shifting the manufacturing of the iPhone 14, which everyone's waiting with bated breath. I'm sure people are already probably camping out in front of Apple stores or some stupid shit like that. They are going to shift the manufacturing of the iPhone 14 to India. They're going from China. It's a big deal. Like, they do a lot of business. They do a lot of manufacturing in China. Like all their manufacturing, in fact, pretty much across the board is from China. So they're shifting to India. But this is actually signaling something bigger. There is something bigger on the horizon here to explain what's going on. India has been growing and has the demographics to continue to grow into the future. China does not have those demographics, or the demographics does not support that at the moment. Whether they do something about that, whether they can do something about that is not known yet. But China's looking down the barrel of a collapse in many fronts. India is not. India looks like it could be potentially rising over the next 20 years to possibly become the world's manufacturing plant, the world's factory, maybe even the world's superpower. Who knows? But this is a big sign. This is a big sign when you've got companies like Apple who are shifting wholesale from China to India, because it also signals something else as well. It's not just we'll pack up the factory and we'll move it over to India. There are elements that are created for an iPhone which are kind of only really created in the way they are and at the cost they are within China. The fact that now they're saying India can do that is huge. It's huge news. So this is a massive, massive shift in world power potentially that we're watching unfold through the lens or through the manifestation of a company moving from one country to the other. But they've also cited that they've got a number of other concerns about China, which is to do with geopolitical stability and geopolitical issues. So Apple, I like to watch companies like this because companies are not dumb and companies are going to do what's in the best interest of companies. So if a company is looking at it and they've made the assessment and they go, we're maybe going to be at war with this country and they could turn off the spout for our products. Let's get out of there now. And that's what I'm seeing here with this news. Peter Rouse says Australian and New Zealand need modern nuclear power also. I do not disagree with you on that. I think nuclear has pros and cons. I think it has some serious pros and it has some pretty serious cons as well. It is definitely something that we need to discuss, and discuss not from an emotional standpoint, because I think that's where most people come from when we're talking about nuclear. People go like 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, Fukushima. It's all bad. It's all bad. Yeah, okay. Those are bad. Those are unmitigated disasters. I will not disagree with you on that. However, where we can go with nuclear, and especially if we start looking at nuclear fusion, so fusion power, we can get to a point where we can actually not get to like free energy or 0 point energy or anything like that, but we can alleviate this pain that we're feeling as a world right now based around energy, potentially. The only way we can really do that is if we develop the technology. The only way if we will develop the technology is if we use it. It's a chicken and the egg sort of thing, but at some point we either have to get in or get out. If we get in, then okay, we're probably going to end up at a point where we might have more disasters. We might have more radioactive material that we have to deal with. We might actually end up with a point where we're actually creating energy for every human being on the face of the earth at a very, very low cost. And it's relatively sustainable and stable. If we go the other way, though, if we jump ship, there's either going to be pain in the way of human lives, and or we're going to pollute the earth quite a bit when we jump into what we have already, which is fossil fuel technology. So that's what we're looking at the moment, I think, with the nuclear thing. But I'm not saying yes 100% this, yes 100% that. I'm just saying this is a conversation I think as a world right now we need to open up. If we don't, I think we're fully shutting off, a massive portion of something that could potentially help out billions of human beings and the environment as a whole, our entire ecosystem on Earth. Anyway, moving right along, Central Asia. Let's move north now, and Afghanistan has been getting hit by some horrific floods again. Are you seeing the pattern yet? Drought, flood, drought, flood, drought, flood. That all, if you look at it from a far enough sort of picture outside of the Earth, northern and southern hemisphere wrapping around like this, the weather patterns. So increased drought, increased heat means at points there'll be increased evaporation of water when it's coming down, which means increased moisture or humidity in the atmosphere, which means increased precipitation, i.e. rain, which means increased flooding, which means certain areas get swept away, get destroyed. Things like crops, things like ground cover gets destroyed, which means it can't requisition the energy from the sun as effectively, which means increased heat, which means increased drought, which you see where this is going, right? So yeah, 182 dead in Afghanistan there. So another at least 250 people have been reported injured. 3,100 houses have been partially or completely destroyed. Pretty huge. This is throughout one region. This story doesn't actually have what region it was in. But this is spread across Afghanistan as well, these floods. And I've reported on a number of flood events that have happened in Afghanistan recently. This is the sort of stuff that we're going to see. On top of this, we've got shaky geopolitical situation within Afghanistan anyway. We've got Taliban, who are their government at the moment. What are they doing about it? I don't know. A little bit of a conversation springing up by surprise. You took me by surprise here, YouTube. Just about nuclear. Keep that conversation going, guys. I like this. Really interesting stuff. We need to again continue this information being pumped out there so people can have a more well-rounded opinion of where we should go in the future. Mass crop failures expected in England. How'd that story get in there? I'm pretty sure I've got a Middle East story that I might have skipped over. Anyway, over to the UK now. Again, more reports on the same sort of stuff, but this is probably 7-8 days in a row now that I've been getting reports about England in particular, with their massive crop failures. And I'm just getting more and more reports across the world, everywhere, crop fails, or crop, yields expected to be less by 10%, less by 40%, less by 60% in some areas. So bouncing around here, this one here says losses of 10 to 50%, 10 to 50, half, 10% to 50%. 10% is big, 50% is catastrophic. And we're talking all crops. We're talking carrots, onions, sugar beets, apples, hops. Milk production will also be down. Meat will be down. On top of this, we're looking at wildfires because of the heat. The dried out crops create extra fuel that can be potentially burnt. So not good picture coming out of England right now, or Europe as a whole. Northern Italy is suffering from spiking temperatures in its worst drought in 70 years. And it is particularly hitting an area known for growing rice. Here's something that I wasn't really aware of. I think Italy, I think wheat. Well, Italy is actually Europe's #1 producer of rice. How do you think that rice is going to go? I've spoken about rice in the past too. Wheat is actually a relatively hardy crop. It's why, it's a staple in most continents on Earth. Rice, though, is quite finicky. It can be quite finicky and quite resource intensive to grow. So things like extreme heat can absolutely destroy rice crops, and that looks like what is actually occurring in Italy right now. The UN has come out in their infinite wisdom and warned of the next pandemic as drought in Europe in the drought in Europe that is the worst in 500 years. I'm following this one under no shit Sherlock. Thank you very much, UN, for telling us information that we already freaking know that's common fucking sense. And how about you shut up and get back in your box, which is, I don't know, going and doing humanitarian work maybe, not trying to take over the world and scare the shit out of people with the food system. But, crop yields go down. This is a statistic just about as old as time. In fact, you can actually read reports of this in some of the oldest texts that we have available. Lack of food equals increase in illness. There's a little storybook called The Bible. And just then I just felt like a bunch of Christians. It's the storybook of, how dare you? Calm down. It's just a joke. But in the book of Revelations, you're talking about the 4 horsemen, and you can think about that. War, famine, pestilence. War equals not being able to eat. And that's what we've seen here. War, Ukraine, decrease in the amount of food out in the world creates famine, which brings pestilence. Pestilence in the form of COVID lockdowns created the situation where war had to come in, which then created famine, which creates pestilence. And you see how this thing becomes a self-licking ice cream. But this is what we're going to see more of. We're going to see more diseases. We're going to see, and there was a whole bunch of stories too, talking about the next big pandemic, the next big blah, blah, blah. I actually don't really like chucking up those stories. I find it a whole heap of fear mongering. It's pretty low hanging fruit to talk about. And it should be obvious to people. These are sort of things you should be preparing for anyway, being like, well, yeah, pandemics happen. Okay. Look back on history, be a historian, look back. Pandemics happen to humans. If you're not preparing for pandemic, then, you're missing out on a big chunk of what your preparation should be built around. Pandemic should be one of them. UK, this is one story out of the UK, but about knife attacks recently. But this was an interesting one. McDonald's stormed and looted by a gang of 50 youths. So youths came running in. Apparently, some of them had knives. What triggered the attack is unclear. Who knows? But they stole food and drinks. And the reason I wanted to tie in the knife thing is apparently they've been having, this year in particular, or this year to date, has seen the biggest increase in knife attacks within the US. Sorry, the biggest increase in knife homicides in the UK, not the US, the UK. I just find that interesting from many perspectives. Like, I've been talking about the increase in violent behavior that I think we're going to see moving forward for the next few years. This is part of that manifestation. This is how it manifests. This is what we're going to start seeing, things like this, knife attacks. Also, you know, another like, take guns off people. Okay, take guns off people. Go do that if you feel that that's the most effective thing that you can do. We'll take all the guns off people, because that's what they did in the UK. Yeah, not even their police officers have firearms. That's how far they went with it. So what do people do? They start stabbing each other with knives. So they've restricted knives too. What if some people have? Well, there's a spate of attacks in the past 5 years. Acid attacks in the UK. Acid attacks in the UK. Okay, you keep taking stuff off people. It's not the weapon of choice that is really the crux of the problem here. The problem is the people. The problem is the society. The problem is the atmosphere that we're creating around each other at the moment. It's not the particular weapon that we get to use. So that's what's going on in the UK at the moment. I think it was at 59 people that have died from knife attacks this year. I'm pretty sure. Or it might even be this cycle, which actually starts in March for some reason. Their police reporting cycle starts in March, which I couldn't quite figure out. But if anyone actually knows the statistics on that, or the information on that, more to the point, can you let me know? Because I dug up and I couldn't, like, it was just a miasma of information from people saying 59 people have died in the UK. I'm like, since when? Of all time? Since Jack the Ripper? This year? Since March? This month? Tell me. In the last 2 days, over the weekend? Like, I need to know the time period here, please. Sorry, I haven't been keeping up with the chat here on YouTube. I love that you guys are chatting though on YouTube. I love this chat going up. Some cool stuff going on there. Oh, howdy, Savage the Wild too. Welcome. Yeah, I'd rather be shot in the kneecap than get hit with acid. I don't blame you. Okay. Russia and India. So I talked about this yesterday, Russia and India making more ties financially. Well, the BRICS International Forum president, Purnima Anand, came out overnight and said, quote, "There is no need for our countries to use the dollar," that being the US dollar. All right, so this is something I've been talking about, that there is this system that is building up and people need to pay attention to it, which is outside of the US dollar. The US dollar has been the reserve and still is the reserve currency of the world and will remain the reserve currency of the world for the short-term future, maybe the mid-term future. But how long will that last? Well, we're already seeing other countries form other systems, and Russia and India seem to be maybe not chief on that list, but certainly up there in the top three who are doing this. And they're looking at expanding it quite aggressively. So the BRICS alliance, the BRICS had their international forum. For those who don't know, BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Their alliance is now starting to talk about these sorts of things. So, watch that space as the hegemony that is the US dollar, or the US petrodollar, starts to disappear. What else has Putin been up to? He's signed a decree to increase the number of servicemen in the armed forces of Russia to 1.15 million people. That's an additional 137,000 soldiers, military people. Very interesting stuff. I think Australia is still sitting around 34, maybe 36,000 total in our entire military system. So the fact that he's increasing by 137,000 to 1.15 million. Just to put it in perspective there for us Aussies. That's a pretty big increase. Belgium PM warns next 5 to 10 winters will be difficult as energy crisis worsens. This one stood up and shouted at me this morning because this is the first time that I've seen a government official from the European area as a whole who have been hammering on about the coming dark winter. Winter is coming, winter is coming, winter's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. But if you look at the system, it's like, yeah, winter's going to be hard. The next 2, 3, 4, 5 years are going to be hard for Europe. But no one's saying that. Well, the Belgian PM has just stood up and said, very boldly, I think, bold prediction, the next 5 to 10 winters will be difficult. So Belgian PM, they're making a big call that this is going to last not a year and then we'll fix it. We're not going to win the war in Ukraine and then the oil will start flowing again. Everything will be great and happy and business as usual, continue on. I think there's a lot of truth in this statement here. 5 to 10 winters. That's what people should be looking at. That's what we should be thinking about right now, is that the time period for this next rough kind of period for us is going to be 5 to 10 years plus. I think it'll might even be 20-25 years. That's kind of what my sort of planning cycle is. And it won't be like homogenized, like, oh, it's Mad Max for the next 25 years. It's just going to be, we're going to have harder times and it'll be up and down a little bit, but it'll be less abundant than what we have experienced for the last 50 years. I can almost guarantee that. As much as I can guarantee anything, I would almost guarantee that. Peter Rouse says New Zealand, I'm guessing military is sitting around 200, just 200 people, 200 folks sitting around, just like, yeah, New Zealand military isn't big like Australian military, but what we do well. I will say that. Savage the Wild says a buddy of mine in Germany says the entire country is stockpiling firewood heading into winter. I can confirm that. I've talked to several people in Germany. In fact, I was in Sweden recently and was on a course with Germans and was discussing with them about it. And they said, yeah, everyone is everyone is afraid and would like to stockpile wood. That was, I think, the exact wording, would like to stockpile wood. Unfortunately, there is none. There's very little firewood in order for them to get. So people are getting it whatever they can. They're getting it at exorbitant prices right now. They are getting things like wood fire heaters are extremely hard to come by in Germany at the moment. If there was some way that we could cut down wood here in Australia and ship it over to Germany efficiently, then I would be doing that right now and making an absolute mutza, a lot of money. Peter Rouse says expanding our garden to an acre. Awesome. That's what I love to hear. Love to hear it. NZSAS, some of the best in the world. I can confirm that. And the New Zealand Special Air Service is some of the best warriors on the face of the earth. I'll also put Australian SAS, and I'll even chuck in the Australian Commandos just because I used to be one. Why not? But we are actually known throughout the world for our special forces community down here in Australia and New Zealand. Finland braces for rolling blackouts this winter. That's going to be tough for a very cold part of the world to be in a blackout during the winter. So one thing Finland does have going for it, being up in Scandinavia, is they do have access, at least, and probably not within the cities themselves, individuals within cities, but country as a whole has access to a lot of wooded land, a lot of forest up there. So, they might be able to lean on that a little bit, but this is certainly one of the things that I'm always talking about. Energy. When we're talking about preps, we prep food, we can prep security, we can prep water and things like that. You also need to think about energy. Right now, as human beings, we're very, very reliant on energy. Energy coming out of magically a power point in your house in every room. But thinking about those backups, those alternatives, the power got turned off to my house the other day for the whole day while they were doing repairs. Not a big deal. Not a big deal to me. I've got several. I've got 4 different, medium to larger scale energy backup systems in my house now. It's something that I've been working on for a number of years, and it's something that I think you should concentrate in your preps as well. Let's jump over to Turkey and Syria. This is the one that I was talking about. That was actually Middle East that I missed out on. I should have had this earlier up, sorry. But this information is coming out of Rojava, which is the northeast corner of Syria, which they are an autonomous region. So people say Syria. This is the part of Syria that I've been to. And I say Syria and people are like, oh, Syria war. I'm like, yeah, well, I've been to Rojava, Syria. This is Kurdish Syria. And you can almost put the Syria in brackets. That's the way it's thought of in Rojava, at least. So they put information out here. This is from the Rojava Information Center about the Turkish attacks that are happening at the moment. There is it's a conflict, and I would say it would be close to a war happening right now in this area. Turkey, Rojava, Turkey, Syria, if you want to put it that way. That's actually happening right now. So obviously propaganda from Rojava, so it's slanted towards their angle, but they put out a number of statistics of people killed, injured, civilians, drone attacks, that sort of stuff that they've experienced allegedly from Turkey. So interesting stuff, and this is something that I'm going to be keeping my eye on just because it interests me. It's part of the world that I've been to. Peter Rouse has been trying to put in a 20 kilowatt solar system, but the high efficiency solar panels are not available. Yeah, these things are getting harder to come by. But now's the time. Now's the time to try and get this stuff, I think, as we move on in the future. Interesting side note, right? One of the big metals utilized in solar technology is silver. And I was reading yesterday on one of the silver channels that I read. If you don't know, if you haven't listened to me before, I'm a bit of a fan of gold and silver, but that's beside the point. That India has just hit its record for the most amount of tons of silver that it's ever bought in 1 year, and it only looks like it's going to increase. So India is buying up silver big time. Let's chuck that. Let's log that in the brain. Also, have a look. Oh, hang on. Apple just moved into India. Newer technologies, green technologies. One more story that's going to come up a little bit later, which will tie into this. India buying up these sorts of resources, buying up rare earth minerals. We can see where this is heading, or you should be able to see where this is heading. India is gearing itself up to be the manufacturer of the world. Savage the World says, haha, a little New Zealand gem happening right now. Currently watching Hunt for the Wilder People, and Psycho Sam is bugging out. Yep. Peter Rouse says, silver is also a great medicine, antibacterial and viral. Yes, you can put silver into water as well to help purify water. So many, many uses, medicinal uses for silver, technological uses for silver. Also, it's darn pretty as far as I'm concerned. I love it. It's cool. I think it's good stuff. All right, let's jump over to the Americas now. So down in Haiti, thousands of people in Haiti took to the streets and are rioting after its central bank reported inflation had hit a 10-year high. The public set up burning barricades and blocked off main roads. There's something missing from this story, and I looked into it. I haven't found it yet. I'll continue to look around here, but something doesn't seem right to me. I'm like, okay, a central bank released information that said their inflation is high. That's cool. That's fine. Everyone's doing that at the moment. That's the hot trend at the moment. Why are they rioting? Why are they burning stuff on the streets? What else is happening here? There's something else going on here. I think might be runs on banks, might be restrictions on bank, on actual currency that can be released out to the public. Hey, jump up. Come on, say hi. Come on. I've been being a shy girl today. But yeah, that's interesting in Haiti, seeing what's going on there. Jump up to Canada now. What's going on here? We've got Trudeau is installing weapons armories, interrogation rooms for the Ministry of Climate Change. Dun, dun, dun. There was some leaked plans, like architectural plans, that got leaked on the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change Canada, the ECCC. They're building a new facility in Winnipeg, and apparently it's got a specific room just for firearms and armory, and interrogation rooms, biological labs, media relations office, controlled quiet rooms, and intelligence facilities. I mean, this sounds like a prepper's wet dream bunker, right? Either that, or this is like the sort of plans that you'd expect to see on a James Bond film for the villain. That's some crazy stuff that's coming out there. Okay, US, this is the last thing that I was going to talk about today. California to ban the sale of new gasoline cars. When are we talking about here? Way off into the future, 2050, 2100, no, 2035, it will take effect. So in the not too distant future, they're looking at it already and they're saying, we're banning fossil fuels in cars. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I mean, I think, if we can get fossil fuel cars to stop burning fossil fuels and, pumping pollution into the atmosphere, that sounds good. Sounds good to me. There are a number of issues, like how many millions of cars are in LA right now alone, and then extrapolate that over California. How many millions of cars? Okay, cool. So we'll get rid of that greenhouse gas that's causing all this climate change, right? By getting those cars off the road, and we'll put electric cars there. How are you charging them? And everyone's just going to charge them at once. And we're already seeing our electricity grids around the world failing. All right, cool. Good luck to you, California. Good luck with that. But anyway, these sorts of en masse, environmental-minded type schemes, maybe good, maybe bad, whatever, but they're going to require a lot of renewable technologies. So again, I'm looking at India and I'm seeing what they're doing, the buying up of the silver, the buying up of the rare earth metals, the companies starting to move into India. And I'm seeing them look at this, look around the world and going, yep, we're going to be the ones making these cars and making these solar systems that they're going to need to charge these cars for California, for the US, for everywhere else. So that was another interesting one that I thought, piqued my interest today. All right. So that's it. Savage the Wild says Haiti is also trying to oust their PM amid those riots and protests. Man, I tell you what, if I was a PM anywhere in the world right now, or a president, I'd be like sweating a little bit. Like, there's a lot of PMs being shot, being thrown out, being chased out of their countries, being yelled at and hated on right now. So tough job. Well, I guess if you weren't total dickheads, then, you probably wouldn't have that tough of a job. People wouldn't be that upset, but here we are. All right, that's it for today. Hope you're having a great Friday. Coming into the weekend, rolling in hot. Got some projects for the weekend. Hope you're getting your projects ready for the weekend. My car is currently getting fitted with some spotlights and a UHF radio. Hashtag prepper car. All right, I'll take this bait, Peter Rouse. Peter Rouse just asked, why do you think Fauci just resigned? Cut and run. That's why I think he just resigned. I think the writing is on the wall. People are starting to put two and two together about this whole past 3 years, the BS that it was, the shit that people were forced to do. It's not going to be good. And I think this dude here, who is probably going to be public enemy number one, is quite maybe smartly taking his bow and exiting stage left. Goodbye, good night, fuck you all, see you later. Taking the money and running, stuffing his pockets full of that cash and moving to the Bahamas or something. I don't know. But yeah, I think it's interesting timing that he's coming out and retiring now and trying to exit before things get worse. That's my take on it. And please feel free to argue with me or enlighten me if you know other information. But that's just my take on it. Personal opinion. Cool, cool. All right, gang. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for everyone on YouTube for the lively comments today. I really appreciate it. I appreciate every single one of you and your thoughts and your ideas. Keep spreading it. Keep having those thoughts. Keep talking about them. I think this is how we get to a better world, is when we express our ideas and other people say, I don't know about that idea. Here's some other ideas, or I think you're wrong because of this. And we don't get butthurt because of it. We go, let me take on that information. And then you actually test your ideas and make them more robust. And we, working together in that way, end up coming out with fantastic ideas that are so super robust that they cannot be broken because they're correct, because they're true. It's the truth of numbers. It's the truth of the crowd. That's what I seek in the world. And that's the fundamental part of that, is freedom of speech, people being allowed to say what they think. Anyway, that's it for today. I'm going to cut it there before I rant for far too long. I've gone for 50 minutes. Damn. Wow. Thank you for hanging out for this long. Power to you. Hopefully there's something in today's ramble that helped you out in some way or inspired you. Please go out there and inspire others through your actions, through your words and your actions. Get out there in the garden, keep gardening, gang. And until next time, Semper Paratus.